Hi, this is Connor for Avid Visions, and today I'm going to be talking about useful camera accessories that Roman and I recommend for you. So, starting on this side, this is a spare battery for your camera. It's always very helpful to have a second battery because it really sucks to run out at the inopportune moment, as frequently happens. When you're dealing with batteries, though, you have to make sure that you get the battery that is specific to your camera, because that matters. And likewise, I also recommend getting a battery grip for your camera. This is another item that is camera specific. This one fits the D300, and it's advantageous because it just keeps that battery inside of it, so your camera can continue shooting for just a lot longer. Also, some of them will even have controls on the back to help you use your camera more thoroughly, and a secondary shutter so you can hold your camera sideways like that more easily. It's just handy for taking pictures. Again, both of these items are camera specific. Make sure that you're getting this correct battery grip and battery for your camera. Next, we're going to move on to some filters. This is just a neutral density filter, which we've talked about recently in another video that I urge you to check out, and we'll have a little link box to it over here somewhere. This is a circular polarizer filter. What this does is this will darken skies and cut reflections when you are not looking directly at the sun and when you're not looking at a mirror. This is for metallic surfaces, so you just spin it on the front of your camera and it has some pretty cool effects, especially if you're using it at, say, a sunset. And this is another thing that you can pick up for about like $10 or less on eBay, so that's pretty neat. This is a macro sliding rail. So this is not camera specific, of course. This is something that you would mount onto the top of a tripod. Right here you see there are screws that a little tripod screw would go into. And then from there you mount your camera on top of this. And you can precisely control where your camera slides if you're, say, stacking macro photos, or if you just want to really take macro shots but be very stable. Because if you've ever tried macro on a tripod, you realize that it's very difficult to get everything in focus. Moving on from that and onto some lighting. This is a little rechargeable ring flash that I've picked up from Amazon for about $30. This is really helpful as just kind of, you can use it as like a point light source. It's good for flashlight, or it's really helpful for macro is what I mostly use it for. They claim that you can mount this onto the end of your lens with the correct step-up rings and stuff, but all of the mounting gear fell off pretty quickly, but that's never really hindered me. I always just held it off to the side. It's just nice to have a little rechargeable light. It's very cheap, and it even has a tripod mount on the bottom, which is nice. Over here we have a flash cable from Vivitar, so this is something that would go into the hot shoe of your camera and then go into the hot shoe with the flash, just so that you can kind of have an off-camera flash. And I believe that this will maintain some TTL flash capabilities, which is pretty nice because a lot of wireless transmitters don't do that. And that just basically means that your flash will meter with your camera. The whole reason that you would get this is a little slave flash made by Neewer. It's $5, and the reason that you would get this flash is for this little flash bracket that comes with it. Basically, this attaches to the flash, maybe, it's supposed to. And this Neewer flash is a little odd. And then this attaches to the bottom of your camera. So you might have seen some of Roman's macro setups before, but mostly we use this for macro because it's really tough to hold your camera, focus the lens, keep everything stable, and hold a flash. So it's really nice if you can just kind of mount this to the bottom of your camera and then use whatever flash. I don't actually recommend using this little Neewer flash because it's really not good. You can't adjust the power, it's just, it either fires or it doesn't. But it's so cheap that the bracket alone is worth the money, I'd say. It's a slave flash, by the way. If you don't know what that is, check the description and I'll write about it. This is a lens pen, is what it's called. It has a little brush on this side for cleaning lenses, and then a little felt bit for getting some real gunk off there, getting some particulate matter out. I always carry one of these with me just because I like to keep my lenses clean, and it's always better to get the shot right in the first place instead of trying to Photoshop out a spot afterwards. On a similar note, this is just a little microfiber cloth for cleaning lenses and generally keeping my camera in good condition because it's important to respect your gear. These are just some front and rear lens caps. You can get these really cheap online, especially if you buy third party, because it really doesn't matter if you get Nikon caps or not. As you can see, this one just has a Z or an N on it. It doesn't matter if they're third party or not. This is just something so that you can store your lenses safely. It's always good to make sure that you never leave a camera body open so that dust doesn't get to the sensor, and likewise you don't want dust getting on your lens. So I always carry some spares of these around with me just to make sure that I never end up with an open lens for some reason or another, because it's always possible to just lose these. Moving along, we have a camera neck strap. This actually goes to Roman's camera that he's filming with right now, but it's basically just a third-party neck strap. As you can see, it's really thick and kind of stretchy. It takes a lot of the weight of the camera off, and you can get these for not too much money, and if you're shooting for a really long day, it can help ease the strain, especially if you're using some heavy lenses or fast glass. It can be nice to get this strap. As you can see, this is actually removable. He's taken it off of his camera right now. And the straps that he's left with are kind of shorter, which is nice because then you can kind of like make it a little wrist strap instead of a neck strap, which is nice. The next thing I have to talk about, both of these are remote shutter releases. So this is normally for star photography or any long exposure photography or low light photography, where you need to make sure that you don't cause any camera shake by depressing the shutter. So basically, you plug this into your camera, and then you press this button to release the shutter. And if you're using a bulb mode on your camera, which is where the shutter stays open for as long as you hold down the shutter button, there's even a lock setting on both of these. So you can just lock the shutter down, and that will take care of bulb mode for you without you having to hold your hand on the camera and inevitably shaking your picture. So these are really cheap and really helpful in a lot of situations if you have a tripod. These aren't for use if you're just hand holding your camera, because your normal handshake will throw it off anyway. This thing is rather large actually, but this is another great Neewer product that is really cheap with a lot of applications. This is just a reflector dish. Step to the side to show you. So basically, this is a really reflective surface. It can help you channel light. This is more of an in-studio thing, but there's no reason you can't use it outside too. Basically, you can just kind of think of light as a little beam coming in and bouncing off of this, and this is a mirror. Or you can block light if you say put this in front of a flash. If the flash is back here somewhere, the light won't get through, of course. And this is actually great because you can open this little cover up, and it's actually a 5-in-1 system. You can see there's a gold reflector that would warm the light as it reflects it. Without any cover, it's a diffuser to diffuse light, so the flash isn't as harsh. There's also a white side to kind of mute the whole thing and soften the light. So this is a really good value. You can get this for like $10 or $15, and it's a 5-in-1 reflector, and it's actually pretty large. I believe it's a 48-inch reflector dish. And if you're doing any studio work, this will really help you with lighting, and it will improve your portraiture if you know how to use it. So it's definitely something to at least toy around with, even if you're not too sure about how to use flash setups or do studio work. It's always great to just practice, and this helps even window light or lamp light or something. It's just a way to modify and bend the light, which is always good to work with. You shouldn't just settle for what you have, always try to make it better. So, like I'm saying, rambling a little bit, even if you're not that good at it or don't have experience, it's so cheap that it's really great to just get it and then try to get experience and start practicing. Okay, now moving on to these. These are my GorillaPod things made by Joby. This is the SLR version of the GorillaPod, and it's supposed to hold about 4 pounds. I always carry this with me in my bag just because it's so light, and it's really easy to just kind of, it's small, you can always compress it. However, I wouldn't say that this is one of my most reliable tripods. It says it's rated up to 4 pounds, but with my D300S, I don't like using it with any of my faster lenses. I'll use it with like a kit lens maybe, or a small prime like the 35 1.8 or the 50 1.8. But other than that, it kind of starts to bow a little bit, as you see, and then it'll kind of drop like that. And that's kind of dangerous, I think, to have your camera mounted on. So I use this, but always with smaller lenses. I've tried to use this with my 70-200 before because I was in a real pinch, and it was a lifesaver, but I needed to really hold the camera up when I was using it. I think that Joby has since started making a stronger model since I got this GorillaPod, and I would definitely look into that. Just make sure you get the SLR version of the GorillaPod, because they also sell point and shoot versions that will absolutely not cut it with the camera that you should be using. This is something similar. It's just a GorillaPod flashlight, and it's actually a really powerful flashlight, as we found out at Cherry Springs. And you can twist this to make the beam more narrow focused or more wide, which is good. And these feet are actually magnetic now, which is really cool. I don't think we have anything really magnetic to show you with on the table. But yeah, and again, one of the main advantages of the GorillaPod is you can really hook it on to anything. If you need, like, if you only have a tree, you can use anything as a great lighting source now. And the same goes for this, maybe if you're using a lighter camera, I guess. But it's always, these things are just really pretty versatile, and that's always helpful. So the last two things that I'm going to be talking to you about today are these lens pouches. These are just good for when you're not using your lens. You can store your lenses in these, and it'll just keep their resale value high because it'll prevent them from getting dusty. It'll make them not get any like scuffs or scratch marks on them if, say, like they fall or anything. Which is pretty nice. Some of them are more protective than others. Like you can see this new case that I just got with my Sigma. It has a lot of foam padding inside of it, and it's really plush, and it has a real structure to it. So if this were to fall, the lens would probably be in some alright condition unless it was a really rough fall. And the other nice thing about this case in particular is it has a little belt loop on the back. So you could conceivably attach it to your belt if you're, say, shooting a long event that day and want to make sure that you have your lens handy. And I know Low Pro makes a few of these things that are even like belt worthy for some like 70-200 size lenses or larger lenses. And that's really helpful if you need to be quickly swapping between lenses throughout the day if you're, say, covering a wedding or doing something serious. So it can be really nice to get a little lens box. And this is the same thing. This is a lot cheaper. It's just a little bag that I keep, say, my macro lens in throughout the winter when I'm not using it. And these bags are just really nice, again, for storage, and the boxes can even be good for day-to-day shooting and a packing solution, which I think is really nice. So this video has gone on for way too long already. Thank you for watching, and we hope you found some of these accessories useful. This is Connor signing out for Advisions.